If you're looking for something new to bake and you're not exactly sure where to start, this is the recipe for you. This is sun-dried tomato and rosemary Italian focaccia. It's light, it's pillowy, it's got great porous holes in there to hold all of your favorite toppings and all of your favorite mix-ins. It's such an easy recipe to do. I mean, anybody can do it, doesn't matter your level of baking. This is an awesome place to start, especially if you're starting out. So sun-dried tomato and rosemary focaccia, it's perfect for pizzas, perfect for sandwiches. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and show you exactly how to get started doing it. To get started on this focaccia, I'm gonna start with 2 3/4 cups of bread flour right here in this bowl. I'm gonna add to it 1 cup of semolina flour, just like that. And I'm gonna mix it really well by hand. Okay, so the semolina and the bread flour are mixed really well together. And now I'm gonna add 2 cups of warm water and just mix it until a nice pasty kind of glue comes together. That's the basis of our focaccia. It kind of feels almost like masa, like if you've ever made homemade tortillas or anything like that, how masa is a very fine but coarse kind of cornmeal. That's what the semolina flour kind of feels like. So it just comes together and it's very absorbent, a lot like masa, and semolina is used in a lot of Italian cooking, a lot of noodles, you know, to make pastas and different breads and things like that too. And it makes it so hearty and really awesome texture in the focaccia. So this is mixed together pretty well. You can see it just came together real nicely, uniform, still kind of loose, but not too terrible. It's like a soupy, you know, tortilla batter, if you will. There we go. Very well blended. And then from here, I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle on 1.5 tablespoons of active yeast. So I'm gonna get this off of my fingers. And I'm just gonna sprinkle 1.5 tablespoons of yeast right over the top. Just like that. All right. So the yeast is in, I'm gonna cover it and let it rise and let it sit for about 10 minutes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so while the dough is sitting and the yeast is sprinkled on top of it, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my herbs. So what I'm gonna do is make a rosemary and sun-dried tomato focaccia. And I've got some fresh sprigs of rosemary right off of my plant. They're so aromatic and they just smell fantastic. So I've got these, and what I'm gonna do is just strip off the leaves and give them a really rough chop. But rosemary is such a very strong herb. It doesn't take much at all. So I've got quite a bit and I may not even use it all. As a matter of fact, I'm only gonna use maybe 3/4 of what I plucked. So I'll just use that. But you know what? I'm gonna make pizza later on, so I'm just gonna go ahead and chop it all. Might as well. That's why it's gonna save me from having to chop it later. Okay, so just give it a nice rough chop. Give it to super small pieces, just like that. Very nice. And rosemary is not exactly one of those herbs that you want to eat raw. You want it cooked in something. You want heat added to it. You want it blended with other flavors, which is why I'm going to use the sun-dried tomato. It works really well. It pairs very well together. Okay. All right. That looks very nice. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in this bowl. It's going to clear off my cutting board to chop up these sun-dried tomatoes. There. Nice. All right. So I have some sun-dried tomatoes here, and they're packed in olive oil, and they have capers and, I mean, just a lot of other great things, some sea salts, a little bit of seasonings in there. But the sun-dried tomatoes are so sweet. I mean, they're fantastic. Look at this little guy. That's a whole tomato right there. Just nicely dehydrated in the sun. So I'm gonna get a little taste of it. It's almost like candy. I mean, they're so sweet. They're just fantastic. So I get a few of these guys out of the jar. Yeah. And give them a nice little chop as well. There. Now these I'm not too concerned about going as fine as I did for the rosemary. I mean, the rosemary is an herb and I really don't want to get, you know, a big mouthful of that because it's just so strong and so overpowering. But the sweetness of the tomatoes is definitely going to give a really good contrast to the the aromatics of the rosemary. Well, let's take a look and see how much focaccia are we using. I think I need a little bit more tomato, so I go with a few more pieces. And the more the merrier. I love it. Love the tomato, love the flavor. I love the sweetness. I mean, this is going to be a very nice rustic Italian bread. And there are a few things that scream Italian other than sun-dried tomatoes packed in olive oil. Especially if you're making an Italian style bread, focaccia. All right, I think that'll do the trick right there. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and just get in here with our hands and start kneading and mixing in the yeast into the dough, just like this. Awesome. I'm gonna take a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon of salt, and mix this in as well. So I want to try and avoid all these pockets of yeast, so I'm just going to kind of pinch it a little bit with my fingers and just start really vigorously mixing it up. All right, now I need to drizzle in about 1/4 cup of olive oil, and to keep my bowl from sliding around, I'm going to kind of wedge it up against myself a little bit and just start pouring and kneading as I pour. There it is. And this is going to cause the dough to stick together even more. Just like that. Nice. And work this in. That's lovely. Okay, I think at this point too, I want to go ahead and add in my rosemary and start folding that in too. Now I want to add in my tomatoes. Now the tomatoes do have a little bit of olive oil on them still because they're not drained and they're not rinsed. I just pulled them out of the jar. There. And we'll just go from there. God, I wish you could smell this. It smells incredible. The tomatoes smell super sweet. And I'm going to get it really well blended all throughout the dough. I'm going to add in the rest of the olive oil now. The dough still seems a little bit wet, so I'm going to sprinkle just a touch more flour, maybe a teaspoon's worth on top, and see if we can get it to stick together a little bit better. And it's already working. Bringing it all together. That's it. That'll do the trick. That'll do it really perfectly. It's going to get that dough nicely formed together, sticking together, so we can go ahead and let it rest. I've got another bowl right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour just a little bit of olive oil in it, like that. And just kind of rub it around the bowl, just a little bit. There, and make a whole lot of noise while I do it. So I'm gonna move this dough into that bowl and just let it sit for about 2 hours until it's double in size. And scrape it all off my hands. This is going to make an awesome focaccia. I wish you could smell it because it smells kind of like a pizza. I mean, you can smell the freshness of the tomatoes, the sweetness of the tomatoes. It kind of reminds me of a pizza topping. So this is going to make an excellent snack. All right, let this sit for about 2 hours. I'm going to clean up, then we're going to come and press it out. Okay, so it's been 2 hours, and look at this. I had to put it into a bigger bowl because it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. So the focaccia is ready to be baked. It smells almost like pizza crust. I mean, it's so fragrant with the rosemary and the sun-dried tomatoes. So what I've got here is I have an oven that's preheated to 400 degrees. I have a Silpat lined baking sheet right here. And I'm just gonna turn the dough out onto the Silpat and just kind of scrape it out like this. We're gonna have all those amazing, really big holes, and the focaccia is gonna make it so light and airy, so awesome. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my fingers and spread this out to a nice rectangle. Make it maybe half an inch thick. So this might take up quite a bit of the Silpat here. And just use your fingers and spread it out. There we are. And I wanna get this kind of as even as possible, as evenly layered. Now, if you don't have a Silpat, that's okay. Just use like a really well-oiled baking sheet. And then we're gonna dimple the dough, just kind of patting it like this with our fingertips. Beautiful. Okay, so this is gonna go into the oven and it's gonna bake for about 18 to 20 minutes until it's golden brown. And then we're gonna tear it right up. All right, there it goes. 18 to 20 minutes, it's almost done. Okay, let's take a look and see how it has turned out. Oh my God, look at that. There's a gorgeous golden pillow of rustic Italian focaccia. Look at that. Oh, this is incredible. Oh, you need to go away. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil over it and let it cool. Look at that. This olive oil gives it a sheen and also a really great fruitiness too. Yeah. Love olive oil. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let this cool for a bit before we cut into it. I wanna be sure and preserve all of that awesome texture, the chewiness of the focaccia, those nice big air bubbles that we're looking forward to. So this is gonna cool. We're gonna come right back to it and cut it in about 20 minutes or so. All right, the focaccia is done. It's nicely cooled and I can't wait to cut into this. So here goes. Listen to how tender that is. Oh my God. Yay! Have nice big pockets right here. You can see the little pieces of rosemary, the sun-dried tomato. All right, we're gonna go ahead and cut up a couple of pieces and give it a taste and see how we did. This is just such a rustic Italian bread. I mean, this makes excellent pizza crust. It makes excellent sandwiches. I mean, for a panini or anything, it's so great. You just go ahead and slice it open and put your favorite toppings, put it in a press, seal it, and it's amazing. This bread is just absolutely incredible. I'm gonna go with this guy right here. It's got big chunks of tomato. See that? It tastes like pizza without the toppings. It's just so awesome. I mean, you get the rosemary, the sweetness of the sun-dried tomato. This is absolutely incredible. Guys, this rustic Italian treat is a must-have. You've got to do this. The recipe is so simple. If you're even a brand new baker, you're not even sure where to start, this is a great place to start. Rustic Italian focaccia. You can put sun-dried tomatoes and rosemary in it. You can leave it plain. You can top it with whatever you want. Go to Kitchen Bravo for all kinds of details and all kinds of great ideas for things like this and more. You're gonna see how easy it is to bake your own fresh breads and just have people knocking on your door thinking that you own a small bakery. It's possible, why not? Okay guys, we'll see you later.